Final ending to my 4-year story. Part 1 down below in comments. She has already procured a rental house and is setting up applications for state benefits for when the divorce is final. Her personal income is pretty low. She is not asking for alimony or child support. She knows I will take care of my child and we will be flexible on where he lives. The only thing she asked was that I continue making car payments for her car. It is my property since I am the sole owner. But she drives it. I had my doubts starting in January that something else was going on, and my hunch was right. She kept telling me she had been faithful since the last affair, but it was an outright lie. She told me today she had another affair this year and is a few months pregnant. What? I told her after the last affair that I could forgive that one, but if she ever found the need to be with someone else again, she should just say so and leave instead of trying to facilitate another affair. Apparently, the guy is more to her liking since she jumped in the bed with him so quick but hasn't slept with me in almost a year. She was recently told she couldn't have kids due to ovary issues, so she lost that bet. At this point I don't have much anger left to dish out except for all of the extra taxes I need to pay going from married to single. I will definitely be working to minimize that impact. My biggest feeling is disappointment. I knew she was not happy with the marriage and divorce was inevitable. I originally knew her as a God-centered woman, but over the past few years she claims she has been too broken. But she knew right from wrong. I know many people don't believe in God, but I hope for her sake that God turns this screwed up situation into something positive for her. I never wanted more kids and she resented me for that. This is going to give her another child, but not under acceptable circumstances. I have no idea who the guy is other than a business associate, but she said he wants to meet me at some point. I guess he knows it is a tense situation and wants to do his part to step up and discuss it. My only concern is whether he is a good guy to have around my son. Not sure how reliable or trustworthy he will be towards my current wife, considering he was willing to jump in the bed with a married woman. I will definitely have to set that meeting up in a public place. I told her today that she may be a good mom, but I will never trust her again in other capacities. Although she wanted another child in her life, this is definitely not the way she saw it happening. But when you make stupid, deceitful decisions, this is what happens. On one hand, she cried about how she feels she ruined my life and dreams, but on the other hand, she appears to somewhat justify her actions because she was unhappy. She does feel guilty enough about the situation to not ask for alimony, but I wonder about the car. It is a recent purchase due a totaled car from a car accident, so I have 5 years of payments. I was willing to make payments if this was a clean divorce, but now that I know another affair was involved, I don't really want to pay for her to have the car. In my opinion, the other guy can take care of her. I will discuss with my attorney. I don't know if I have any legal obligation to provide transportation for her, but I also don't want to act revengeful. I have spent too many years filled with resentment and anger. This has been a major learning experience for me to use for future relationships. And for the divorce, I already have an attorney and will be drafting the marriage settlement agreement. I already have an attorney. I will discuss the medical stuff with him. I wanted to stay married until 2018 to avoid getting hit hard with single taxes for all of 2017 while I've been paying based on married withdrawals. So, until the divorce is final, she could bill all of her doctor visits to our current plan if she wanted to. She did apply for state benefits in Ohio. Even though mentally she is broken and can't stay faithful, she at least is trying not to burden me with the finances. My attorney said to keep peaceful. He doesn't know about the baby yet, and to hurry up and get an agreement signed. It's weird, even though she has been very deceitful and outright lie several times about what is going on. Even last week she kept saying she was faithful this time. Just burning time until she had the guts to fess up. She has never done anything detrimental with our money. She always viewed the bank and credit accounts as mine. She has her own accounts that I don't have access to, but only banking. She has no credit of her own and no credit history. My attorney said to be nice during this process to avoid making her upset. He even suggested I offer alimony for a period of time to help her feel secure and not let her go down an emotional rabbit hole. He doesn't know about the pregnancy yet, but will tomorrow. Our son is definitely mine. Looks just like me. No doubts there. I only had doubts of her faithfulness during times when I felt something was off, and I was right both times. When she first announced wanting a divorce, I was in support of the divorce, and she said she wanted no alimony. The attorney mentioned alimony as a bargaining option if I felt she would ask for other benefits, but also said it could help me with the taxes. With the new situation, I am sure he will not support that. I wish I could pay the car off, but I don't have the cash. She also doesn't have the credit history to get a loan. So, I am stuck at the moment. The only way I could do that is maybe pay it off with a credit line or other loan, and then the lien holder would give me the title. But then my interest rate would be much higher than it is now. So, if I am going to be stuck paying for it, it is best to keep the payment I have now. The maintenance is another issue. It is a Jeep and she drives a lot. She doesn't have money for that either. I hope the other guy has money to spare for her sake. My attorney said the key is to get her to sign waiver of her right to our current assets. Verbally she has agreed to do so, but once she sees the information in a legal document, she could have other feelings. She can't afford her own attorney, but maybe the boyfriend will offer to pay for one. Who knows? My attorney said child support is not automatic court order if we have a mutual agreement, but I may need to get more details on this. I think getting pregnant was karma telling her to stop messing around and get focused again. The other guy is at least 10 years older than me and has other kids. She said he didn't want to be mixed up in an affair either, but he still did. I lost a lot of trust for my wife and she lost respect for me as a husband. It may sound strange, but I hope this guy is a good guy and will take care of her. Her and I have our own son and he will be staying with her most of the time. The last thing I need is her to do deeper into depression. What I had a hard time understanding is why she is so sad. She had one affair that she said was a huge mistake, but this one was more calculated since she was also planning to leave me as well this time. She said a lot of things that she never had to think about before, such as paying all of her own bills, is weighing on her, and I think the pregnancy is more of a cause of her sadness than actually leaving the marriage. She is sad that her marriage did not survive, but I don't think she is sad about being apart from me in particular. She wanted more kids in the past, but I didn't, and I know she didn't want kids this way. Should have made the guy wear a condom instead of relying on pills. But now I am concerned that her health issues will make this pregnancy difficult. She had issues with the first one too. My soul isn't crushed since the marriage has been dying for a long time. We met in college and our opposite personalities attracted each other but didn't work well in marriage. I am not sure how opposites can enjoy a marriage. Being married to her taught me some good lessons and exposed me to more areas that life has to offer. But I also learned that I need someone more like myself to be in a successful marriage. I have my own issues to work on, but with my wife it became apparent after a few years that we didn't have a friendship outside of being married with a child. I can't remember the last time my wife actually asked me to spend time with her on a date or to just go out as a couple. After the initial romance wore off, we had no strong friendship to build on and we share almost no common interest anymore. Financially, the good thing is that the only fixed support she wants is for me to keep paying for her car, which is in my name. My attorney thinks I should just let her keep it as part of our settlement, but I have some conditions that would allow me to take ownership back, such as her not maintaining insurance and maintenance, or letting other people drive without my permission. She let her last affair partner drive my car, and I just found out about a speeding ticket her got in it 4 years after the fact. On one hand, I am somewhat glad to see her suffering for her decision, but I also feel she doesn't have the right to be depressed. That may sound stupid, but I think it was stupid of her to plot and plan her exit of the marriage, but then only to put herself in a worse position. I think the pregnancy is what has her messed up the most. She resented me for not wanting more kids, and eventually a doctor said she couldn't get pregnant again due to reproductive health issues. But she still conceived despite using birth control. I think it was God's way of finally telling her to sit down and stop screwing around. If she had not gotten pregnant, I think she would have continued to carry on the affair instead of leaving, but she knew I would not be able to forgive and reconcile a pregnancy by the affair. I did start seeing a counselor to vent some issues instead of talking to family and friends about it. What I found strange is that the counselor asked a few times about whether I would consider reconciliation. I was surprised to hear that. Yes, I do miss the woman I married, but I was willing to let the first affair go, but this time my wife said she wanted to leave. At first, she said she couldn't be the woman I needed and it wasn't fair to keep dragging me down. A week later she told me about the affair and pregnancy. I don't want her to struggle, but I think the days of us as husband and wife need to end. One good thing about me is that I am an introvert. I always felt it was a curse, but the positive thing about it is that it has kept me out of a lot of drama and allowed me to lead a peaceful life. I was not a very emotionally supportive husband, but I kept a stable home, made sure all of the bills were paid, and let my wife live out her life despite my insecurities about what was going on. She is a big extrovert and always needed attention from people, and that made cheating very easy for her. I also had interests in having my own affairs, but the built-in introverted programming kept me focused on my job and home and not seeking out other women. For now, I am being still. This summer I am going to relax and enjoy some trips with my son. August through November will be very busy months with work on a major project, and I can't afford to be distracted. I did try to do a lot of social things over the past month, but it became exhausting and expensive. But eventually I need to get into the dating game, but really need to decide what I want in my next relationship. The major thing that went missing with my wife was friendship. We had great fun prior to marriage, but when real life hit, it all went downhill. I'm much wiser now and know myself better and really need to decide if I am true husband material or not. My wife signed the marriage settlement papers with no issue today. As explained in previous posts, she asked for a divorce after having a second affair that resulted in pregnancy. She didn't ask me for anything except help with the car payment, which I own, and to continue supporting his son without court orders. We will file divorce papers later this year and execute in January to avoid a tax hit this year. Her baby will be born in January sometime. Our son knows about his new half-sibling, but he hasn't talked to me about it. He appears to be the same happy kid, which means he grew accustomed to me and my wife living separate lives in the same household for quite some time. I am sure he will ask more questions as he gets older. I didn't expect her to have any issues with the agreement since she basically told me she doesn't deserve anything for screwing up so badly. Final update. My wife is 4 months pregnant with her affairs partner's child. They had an affair and was being stupid. She moved into her own house in May and our son will be staying with her during the school week and me on weekends. She has some sort of relationship with her partner still, but everything is not happy. My wife is miserable and depressed due to the mistakes she made. She broke up her family and financially she is not doing well because she is an entrepreneur but also looks for regular jobs during slow times. But no one will hire her after noticing she is pregnant. This other guy has several kids with multiple women. 2 of the kids, ages 18 and 20, stay with my wife from time to time, as does this guy. I had a chance to meet the other kids when I dropped my son off but refused to go into the house. My wife was supposed to introduce me to the guy before he started spending time around my son, but this meeting never happened. And probably for the best. I told her for now I have no desire to be around her. This guy, or his kids. The last time I was around her I felt extremely tense about the betrayal. She is extremely remorseful about the damage she has caused but still continues to live her life with this other guy and his kids. Even if they aren't a couple, she will be forever tied to these people due to the baby. Story 2. My wife and I have been together for 8 years, but only married for 1 year and 1 month before she said we should separate. This was November 10, 2016. And I heard the "I love you but I'm not in love with you" line. I've been hearing a lot of "I can't see you as anything more than a friend and not sure that I ever will." 2. I know her very well, so I know that when things get complicated, she likes to run away at all costs to avoid confrontation. When she asked me to move out, the week I spent moving, she booked a flight and went home to her family to avoid being there while I moved out. She also went home for the holidays to be with her family, while I spent all of the holidays sitting alone in a completely empty apartment. I don't think of myself as obsessive, but I love my wife very much and find myself doing things to check up on her. But really, I think it's more my search for peace and answers. For instance, I know she has an emotional attachment to a guy we both know from online. We're big into online games, and we both know him from there. He is in the Navy and literally lives on the other side of the country. He is also going through a divorce. His wife left him. So, I don't believe they will ever have a physical relationship, but there is definitely an emotional connection between them over what's happening in both their lives. Because of my need for answers that are going unanswered, I couldn't help but dig, knowing I'd not like what I might find. But I did it anyway. I pay our cell phone bill. I saw that she calls him literally like an hour every day. I also see that they text back and forth between like 6 a.m. when she gets up for work, all through the day, until she goes to bed at night, every day. How could this not be a red flag and bother me? Even if it's not physical, it's certainly emotional. And she doesn't ever call to talk to me, unless it's a negative conversation about what's going on in our lives. I was never perfect. I was often short-spoken and she felt I was always irritated by her. I wasn't, but that was her impression. I always loved my wife, and always tried to make sure she knew it, but I guess it wasn't enough. Anyhow, I've always given her every reason to trust me, always tried to be honest, but she feels like her privacy is invaded and that I'm not trustworthy. So, in a letter that I left her at the door to our house, I wrote some things, explaining myself, my concerns, and hoped in some way she'd not only understand but gain some perspective and peace of mind. I also gave her the login and password, so she could change the phone bill info so I can't log in to check her usage. I also gave her the keys to the house that I had. This was to show her that I am worthy of her trust, and I am not watching her every move. It was as much for her as it was for me, I suppose. Anyhow, she changed all the locks anyway, last time I was over to get my mail from her. I saw they were all different. She gave some excuse about living alone and being uncomfortable in the house alone, and we had some locks that were not the best, like to the garage, and when she paid the guy to come out, he said they had to change all the locks that way they'd use the same key. Not sure if I buy that though. Trust is becoming tainted. I've always trusted her. She's never given me a reason not to. However, saying you'll stand by someone for better or for worse in the moment she feels it's more for worse than anything. She starts to back out emotionally, closes off, and now is angry and resentful. I can't help but lose some trust because she's becoming a different person, or rather showing a side I've never seen in 8 years. I guess my big issue here is that she often talks about just filing for the sake of it being less painful. She hates that I'm hurting, and she knows I'm struggling with it because I want to work things out. but she doesn't think she will ever love me again. Because of that, she feels like she is prolonging my suffering and wants to just file just to get it over with. So, she doesn't know what she wants, it sounds like. We've been separated since November 10th, 2016. So, it's been like 2 months. She says she's confused and doesn't know what she wants anymore. I told her not to worry about me and not to file on the basis that I'm hurting. I want her to really take time and think things through. The problem I come across is I'm not getting really direct answers. When I ask why she does or doesn't feel a certain way, the answers are just like I just don't do. I just can't. It's just not the same. I'm confused. I see things clearly, but won't say what that clarity is. I also have confronted her. She asked me if I really thought something was going on, and I told her flat out, yes, I do. She talks to him more than any other person in the world as of lately. Naturally, she got defensive, which is a deflection tactic, talking about how I'm spying on her, etc. I told her not to deflect, and she got mad that I would even consider that she was having an affair. She says she confides in him because he is struggling with separation, divorce too, and that it would never be physical. She cried when she was talking about it, talking about how she's too damaged and feels like she has nothing left to give anyone, that her heart is closed off and hardened and she couldn't even think about being with anyone. Of course, knowing her how I do, I want to believe that, but I also know she obviously has some feelings for this guy, and her situation likely makes her feel even more drawn to him. Two lonely people, both confiding in one another. One thing leads to another, you get the drift. I'm currently at the point where I'm trying to avoid her and be dodgy because she doesn't miss me at all. And that's what I think she does need. She didn't hear from me for a week, and she sent a few texts asking where I was and hoping that I was doing okay, which I guess is good, but I don't want to read too much into that. I guess what makes this so difficult for me is that I'm trying to avoid her, and she's the only real friend I have had. So, when I have a bad day, or I get caught up thinking about this big mess I'm in, I can't just turn to her or call her up and talk. And I've unfortunately only got so many things to keep me busy during the day, until I come back to my empty apartment and get stuck with thoughts running through my head. So, my wife called me up today. I've been leaving her alone and honestly didn't expect her to call me out of the blue. So, I took a deep breath, put on a happy smiley attitude, even though I don't feel that at all, and answered the phone. We talked a little about random things going on at the house that were bugging her, and we just sort of chatted. She eventually talked a little, opened up, and talked about the guy she has an emotional connection to. Says she likes him, but nothing could literally ever happen because he lives on a military base and is going through a separation of his own, but admitted she still had an emotion connection, just not a physical one. That sort of made me feel better, at least that she opened up about it. She also talked about how one day she will likely date again, maybe while we're separated, but she doesn't know, and currently has no prospects or interest in anyone, but she wanted to make sure I understood that it could happen eventually. Overall, the conversation was very civil. I was kind, not needy, clingy, or anything. I was just polite, as if I was talking to a friend or family member on the phone. We did talk briefly about working out what's going on. I told her that I didn't like the idea of her dating, and in time hope she will open up with me more and feel comfortable and confident talking to me about what's on her mind, but that I understood how difficult it is, and didn't press the subject. I did tell her to not worry about the marriage right now, as it seems to be a sore spot for conversation, and that right now we should just set it aside and work on things and talk like normal people, not talk about what happened in the past or what we're doing to fix it. Instead, just ask like normal people, friends, and build a connection over time in a genuine, non-forced fashion and see where time takes us. I don't know if what I said is necessarily a good thing, but I felt good about not diving into a clingy, needy conversation where I tell her how much I miss her every day. It was just kind of a nice chat, and at the end nobody cried or sounded depressed. It sounded almost happy. She demanded I move out, so I did. I complied with all of her demands. She eventually changed the locks on the house that we both own. She went out of town to see her parents. When, due to prior snooping, I saw she was also looking at flights to see the guy I think she's been getting involved with emotionally, so that she could get physical with him. I talked to her dad on the phone, made up a story about needing to get in touch with her, and that I knew she was visiting them for the weekend. Well, he sounded confused and said, "What? She's not here visiting us. I haven't talked to her in days." So, she lied, further adding to the pile of doubt and inconclusive proof of infidelity. I eventually talked to her in text, talked about seeing a counselor. She wouldn't answer the phone, only texts. She's avoiding actually seeing or talking to me. She declined. No beating around the bush. Long story short, I did something I'm not proud of, but feel I had to do it for peace of mind and for my own divorce proceedings. I broke into my own house. Well, I own it, so it's not really breaking and entering unless there is a legal reason to not be there. and there isn't. Got on her computer that had no password, checked web history, found tons of proof, searching for flights, dates, that match up with where he lives. And when she was out of town, despite previous attempts to confront her about cheating and being involved with another man, she is dedicated to believing she isn't involved. Yet all the red flags, neon lights, and marching band are pointing that direction. Oh, the grand prize. I found a receipt and a home pregnancy test, which came out negative, but whatever. Dated from a few days ago, sitting in our master bathroom on the floor. Not even in the garbage, just next to it. We haven't had bond in 5 months, and I know she's had periods since then. So, she wasn't concerned about having my kid, that's for sure. Morally, I feel ashamed for crossing the line, but justified. Legally, I am justified, and will be, especially when things get ugly. It won't make anything actually better, and it's not what I wanted, but hey, I've always been 100% honest and faithful, and she clearly can't be, so good riddance. I'm still going to confront her about this information, cautiously, but I know it's all over now. But I'm just looking to hear her tell the truth. And finally admit the truth. She has been staying with a friend and is absolutely terrified of me. I've never yelled at her in the 8 years we were together. Never raised a hand, barely even raised my voice. Why would she be terrified of me? What's the logic in this? I told her about what I found in our house. She flipped about me getting in even after she changed the locks. She had no right to do that anyway. And entering my own home, no matter how I did it, is legal. She called me a psycho, stalker. I haven't acted psycho at all. But the spying made me feel bad, so the stalker word hurt. But I definitely have not been stalking. She flatters herself with that one. She also said, I hate you, and I'm getting a restraining order. Stay out of my life. I'm done. To which she also said, in regard to me getting into my own home, I'm going to take everything and then some. She also mentioned that everything that she bought and everything we made together is all hers. She earned it, and I don't deserve anything. So, I'm in a dark corner right now, mostly because I never in my wildest dreams imagined that the person I had loved and given all my trust to would turn out to say these most terrible things. She said she was terrified that every day I was going into the house while she wasn't there. I only ever went in twice. Once I told her about having done it. The other was Friday, when her story wasn't making sense. We both works. She makes twice my salary, maybe even 3 times that. Yet she said she was going to take me for everything and then some. She's just being spiteful now. We also just bought our house, and the tax refund from the mortgage is something we are supposed to split. She says she refuses and is going to take all of it. Granted, she literally bought the house by taking out the loan while we were married, because she wanted a home, but I couldn't afford it. However, I sweat blood and tears renovating, installing, repairing, improving our home. I also spent much of my money doing it, and I paid all the bills after we owned the home. However, she believes that I should not be entitled to any of it, because I didn't earn it, despite having given up 8 years of my life, sacrificing everything along the way for her happiness, sometimes even sacrificing mine. Sure, money-wise I didn't compare to her, but I did other things in place of monetary earnings. Sunday I'm going to call a lawyer that supposedly takes consults on the weekends, though I don't know if Sunday counts. She clearly seems to hate me, yet she hasn't filed yet. What gives? Why won't she file? She was furious that I wasn't going to give her an uncontested divorce, sign over the house, and walk away with absolutely nothing. But why would she delay filing? I know that she called her lawyer. I saw it on the phone bill for Monday. But how long does it take to show up in the court system? It's public information, so I can search to see if she has filed. That's what my lawyer showed me how to do. And I see that she hasn't filed. Why the heck won't she just get it over with, since it is what she wanted? She wants to get me out of her life, and I want to move on because this hell is miserable. I just don't understand it. My divorce process is going to get ugly. Not that I wanted it to, but it's where she's driving things. I always imagined we'd still be friends, despite knowing that seeing her date other men would probably change that. She accepted my settlement. However, I still have to give it to her lawyer officially, and I'm sure, him being a lawyer, will tell her to decline the offer. But she seems over it and wants it to just be done with. She still feels I don't deserve so much as a dime. However, said the settlement I suggested was fair enough. I guess. I asked for less than 10% of what she makes in a year. I'm not in it for money. I'm in it to help me regain some financial stability after a devastating blow was dealt with divorce. She made a comment about me getting what I want out of it. What I want my life back. I want to be happy. I want to have never met her, to have never wasted 8 years of my life and gotten nothing but misery out of it in the end. I didn't want any of this, and to hear her suggest in a bittersweet conversation that I'm getting what I want is such a titanic insult. I think less than 10% of 1 year of her earnings is quite a pittance. Considering 8 years of my life were thrown away like nothing, I had to go to court this morning to handle the restraining order. Not a protective order, just a restraining order saying we won't spend our money or be malicious towards one another. It's a status quo thing. While there we were going to also come to a resolution on the divorce by agreeing to the settlement terms, etc. I first showed up in a very giant hallway with lots of wooden benches. I didn't expect to see my wife sitting there on a bench. She saw me, look right at me, and she looked miserable. The benches were back to back, so instead of sitting next to her, I sat on the other bench behind her, on the opposite side. She seemed hurt by that, I guess. She asked me why I didn't want to sit next to her. I told her why would I want to. She didn't answer that. Instead, she was tearing up and asked me, please come sit next to me, to which I did, because I couldn't stand to see her cry like that. The way she said it was so incredibly sad and pained. There was a lot of awkward silence, mainly because what was there that could really be said? She forced some conversation topics, mentioning random things, asking questions. Eventually, she started apologizing sincerely for all of her behavior and things that she said to me that were very hurtful. I didn't really answer. I just kind of shook my head. I was angry and hurt, but more than that, I was disarmed by how much harder it appeared to be on her than it was for me. At least, externally. We went in, did our thing, and started walking out to the parking lot, together but separate. She continued to force more conversation, to which I was very short, and answered in single-word statements. What else was I to do? My world was officially caved in. She got the divorce she wanted, and I lost my wife, best friend, dreams, and everything I had believed in and worked for. So, yay, I wasn't feeling up to talking about how my sister was doing, or how work had been. Anyhow, as we walked out the door, there were 2 parking lots, one to the left of the building, one to the right. Poetic, really. We were going our separate ways. She seemed like she wanted to hug me or say something, or walk together for longer. I didn't know how to react. I didn't say goodbye, didn't look at her, didn't say a thing, just walked off towards my car. Not even looking back, but I could tell that she did. I could hear her high heels on the ground, and they stopped for a moment and turned. Was it the better choice than hugging and saying goodbye? Who knows, but it's the decision I made at the time. Hardest walk I've ever had to make in my entire life. I still love her more than anything, but the reality of it is, this was something I had no choice about. Part of me thinks that she is truly sorry for hurting me. The other part recognizes that it is likely a very small part of her that feels that. The majority is feeling guilty and is desperate for me to not hate her or be angry with her. Because if I am kind and forgiving and don't act completely destroyed by this, that she'll feel less guilty doing it. While I still love her deeply, she has no love at all for me. Things cannot work, because she will not let it work. She kept stressing how much she still wants to be friends. Talked about how hard it is for her and that she is thinking of looking for a job back in TN, where she used to live before we moved together to Texas. Which made me feel even more trapped, because the only reason I live where I live is because I sacrificed everything to move with her. And now she's thinking of going back home and leaving all the trash, me, behind, after a month. So today I had to go over to her house and get some of my belongings. They were in the garage, so I went over, and she let me into the garage. She stood there, and I wasn't sure if it was because she was just trying to be around me, or to make sure I wasn't going to steal stuff. I really don't know. Anyhow, it was awkward and silent. I didn't have much to say to her other than give her short answers. I was gathering some boxes of my stuff and loading them into the car. It got to a point where she was asking questions about what I've been doing with my time. She was digging for information. She had heard through a mutual friend of mine that I had been going out late at night. So, my wife assumed it was with a woman. She wasn't wrong, but that doesn't make it any less of an assumption without the facts. Anyhow, I told her that it's not really important that she knows what I do with my personal life, since she isn't part of my personal life anymore. She immediately went into, so that means yes you were. She got mad about it. Needless to say, she kept saying I was having an affair and that she could use it against me in the divorce if she wanted to. We signed the agreements and divorce papers already. We literally are just waiting 30 more days for the state of Texas to make it official. But we're definitely not together anymore. She kept saying, but in the eyes of law, we are married. And I was like, okay, we haven't been together in 5 months. And you wanted this divorce. Why do you care? I'm going to be with plenty of other women, just as I'm sure you're going to be with plenty of other men. She is just using the law to express her anger, I guess. Anyhow, I didn't yell or raise my voice, because that's just not how I am. She started getting more frustrated, and our interaction ended with her saying, okay, you can go now, and I asked, why are you freaking out like this? To which she gave me the finger and shut the door. A key element I should mention is that I told her about how I felt about her emotional affair, that she was planning to make physical by purchasing plane tickets to see this other guy before we even filed for divorce. She said, that's different because we didn't actually do anything. And the only reason they didn't do anything was because apparently he rejected her. and didn't want her to come visit. So, she didn't have a physical affair. Because she lost the opportunity, not because she is a good person with morals. She also doesn't acknowledge any of her faults for the marriage falling apart, or that she just a week ago said it was her fault. And her issues are why it didn't work. Not because of me, but now she's turning it into you had an affair. I can't believe you did that. Is it possible that she is just really that insane? Her constant change of personalities makes me wonder if her family's history of mental illness is starting to shine in her. 10 months after the separation, I'm a skydiver, so I spend most of my time, or as much time as I can afford, in the air. This is something I enjoy, and never did while I was married because she didn't like it. And I didn't want her to be alone if something happened to me. The sacrifices we make, right? I spend a lot of time at the gym, and working, and just generally doing things that for the most part make me happy. I've been dating since we separated, and I've had plenty of good experiences. Many people seem jaded by past bad experiences with relationships. That's not my style. Not everyone is a cheater, and I don't let that affect me while dating. I am, however, the not looking for a serious relationship right now kind of guy. Things will happen as they do, you know, and I don't want to jump into anything. After having been off the market for 8 years. October I'm running 2 marathon and adventure runs, rock climbing in Red Rocks, snowboarding for 10 days in Colorado in December. Visiting family in Atlanta for Xmas, traveling a lot for fun mostly, going to go outside the country maybe next year too. In short, my life after divorce has been working, making more money, traveling, having more hobbies I couldn't do before, and dating women, whom are supermodel types I never in my wildest dreams would imagine would be into me. Mostly I guess because my ex-wife was bad for my self-esteem. Things always look up, guys. Just keep chugging the path. On a funny note, sometimes mail shows up, or my ex finds an excuse to text, email me. If I respond, she sees that as a segue to ask, "How are you doing?" Or to create random small talk. I never respond to that. Just this week, she tells me, a year after I move out, that she has a box of my stuff. And I can get it if I want. She then says, "Oh, but I heard you moved out of state now, so never mind." Basically, she heard from a friend of mine I was interested in leaving, and assumed I moved already. It sounds like she is just trying to confirm if I left or not. Seriously, what's the point of that? And with all the small talk asking how I am and stuff. Anyhow, I said you can toss it, or keep it. And didn't acknowledge her question of whether or not I moved. It's none of her business anyhow. So, I'm rather content. I won't lie, guys, I think about her frequently when I'm making long drives, or when I hear something, or see something familiar that reminds me of her. There are sad times when I think of that stuff, but that's just life. It's less frequent than it was during the whole mess. And honestly, I don't think anything about her when I'm dating someone else. One day, all the crap you go through won't be so painful. It'll just be an empty thought, a memory, but it won't really hurt anymore. And you'll find plenty of things along the way that make you happy. I don't know about you, but I don't mind having a few bad days, if the majority of my days are happy. I wish all of you out there that are new to divorce or going through separation or divorce the best. Things always find a way of getting better. People adapt, and you will too. Cheers. You guys like the ending of both of these short stories. Wanted to throw in a happy ending for some of you who still have memories of your past relationships. Things will get better, it just takes time. Hit that sub and bell, and I will work on the next one after my quick nap again.